Man looks at the world not with one's eyes, but with inner knowledge. Only the spirit fills man with knowledge. People see the world the way they look at it. The world seems gray and dull to those who look at it with dull eyes and who have lost the shine of their own eyes. Magicians know that the shine of the eyes is evidence that a person hears his spirit. It is the spirit that is able to return fire and shine to the eyes, thanks to which one can see all the splendor of the universe and begin to live in harmony with its laws. But how are the eyes connected with the spirit, and how to fill the eyes with shine? Magical knowledge teaches that the eyes of a person are connected not with the world of ordinary things, but directly with the abstract or with the spirit. The eyes allow the spirit to see the physical world. In order to look at the world through the eyes of the spirit and see all the secrets of the universe, it is necessary to restore the connection with your spirit. To do this, you need to get rid of self-pity and develop ruthlessness. Stay with us, and we will tell you how to return the shine of the eyes to yourself and learn to see the essence of all things in the world. Knowing how to see the essence of things with the help of shining eyes can make you truly happy. The ancient sages said that man is not just a physical body, but a magical being with an eternally conscious, immortal essence, which the magicians call the spirit. In the 20th century, the secret magical knowledge was again revealed to Western civilization and became public through the works of the mystical writer Carlos Castaneda. The knowledge of the magicians, which Castaneda wrote about in his books, says that a person becomes stronger and happier the more closely and comprehensively the power from the spirit of man interacts with the foundations of his everyday life. It is the ancient knowledge from the books of Carlos Castaneda that reveals the secret that the human eyes are connected not with the physical world, but with the abstract world in which the human spirit resides. At the same time, according to known facts, 50% of the brain's energy is spent on vision, and about 90% of all information about the material world comes to a person through the eyes. In other words, the spirit sees the world through the eyes of a person, and a person is able to look at the world through the eyes of the spirit. But what is the spirit we are talking about, and why is it so important to see the world through the eyes of the spirit? To answer this question, we must turn to the experience of the magicians, because the magicians know the secret of human nature. According to the secret, man has a threefold structure, which consists of the physical body, the soul, and the spirit. The body is the instrument of the spirit in the material world. The soul realizes the connection of the physical body with the spirit. Thanks to the soul, the spirit accumulates experience throughout a person's life. At the same time, the spirit itself is the source of the life-giving force and eternal consciousness, thanks to which both the body and the soul gain energy to implement the will of the spirit and come to life in the world of material and gross forms, which is physical nature. In order to try to get closer to a deep mystical understanding of the meaning of spirit and the shining eyes in human life, it is necessary to begin to learn to understand and operate with the language of the abstract, or the language of magic. Now we will introduce you to this language. Be attentive and try to see what we are saying, and do not allow stereotypes and cliches to limit your perception. In this way, you will be able to take steps towards understanding the magical truths that are an integral part of human life. Throughout life, everyone gains experience or knowledge about the world. Ancient teachings say that a person perceives and sees around him only that which is in tune with his inner knowledge. That which does not find a response in the depths of the human soul, through which knowledge is accumulated by the spirit, is hidden from a person until the human soul becomes more mature and elevated. In other words, inner knowledge through the eyes builds before each person that image of the world which he or she is able to embrace with the nobility of his or her soul impulses. The deeper a person's awareness of the experience one has lived through, and the more developed and majestic one's soul is, the more a person is able to see the world in its infinite diversity, and the brighter one's eyes shine. Magic teaches that the deepest understanding of the world is given to a person by his immortal spirit. Knowing this, the magician focuses his eyes on the abstract or on his spirit. He looks at the world with the eyes of the spirit from the height of eternity itself. That is why the eyes of the magician shine and radiate light into the world similar to the glow of the stars and galaxies. An ordinary person focuses his eyes exclusively on everyday life and the problems of everyday life. There is no knowledge of the eternal and the spirit in everyday life, which make the eyes shining. Therefore, the gaze of an ordinary person is dull and devoid of light. Dull eyes look at the world superficially and are unable to discern the beauty and splendor of the inner harmony standing behind the external objects of the world. Without contact with beauty, the eyes fade and a person becomes exhausted and tired. Thus, forgetting about his magical nature, an ordinary person loses his magical gift that connects him with the spirit. This gift is the shine of his eyes. Now, you are probably asking yourself, what is the magical nature of man, and can you personally remember your magical nature? The secret ancient knowledge described by Carlos Castaneda will help answer this question. Of course, when working with new ideas, it is necessary to interact with those for whom such ideas have become part of their lives, but such people may not be around. By the way, for this purpose, we created the Three Suns Closed Club, in which, together with the participants, we touch upon the unknown sides of both the spiritual nature of man and the unsolved mysteries of the world and the cosmos. It is the Three Suns Closed Club that helps to find like-minded people and begin to perceive the world better, clearer, and deeper. In the Closed Club, we publish all necessary information, links to films, books, scientific articles, etc. that will help you to get personal enlightenment. In case you want to join us in the Three Suns Closed Club and learn to perceive new ideas and begin to develop magical thinking that will enrich your life, we will leave a link in the description of the video. According to this knowledge, the soul of man is not homogeneous, but dual and consists of the tonal and the nagual. The tonal is that part of the human soul that allows everyone to live in the world of logic and intellect. This part does not notice and ignores the magical nature of things, and therefore no one is able to realize themselves as whole and live in harmony with nature, relying solely on the tonal. The nagual is the second, much more refined part of the soul of man, representing his deep inner sensory world. With the help of open and developed feelings in man, the nagual is able to interact with the abstract, and the man himself can build a connection with his spirit. It is through the nagual that the memory of one's magical nature can return to anyone. When a person perceives the world through the tonal, he is under the power of the mundane consciousness. The mundane consciousness is capable of touching only the surface of the world, ignoring its huge intangible part and immense depth. Therefore, knowledge of the tonal and the mundane consciousness make a person's gaze superficial, his eyes dull, and the image of the world the same for all people. When a person orders the tonal and develops the nagual in the process of his knowledge of the world, he reveals the true consciousness in himself. Thanks to the true consciousness, anyone is able to interact with the spirit and the invisible essence of things. The mundane and the true consciousness are always in opposition. This means that when a person looks at the world through the eyes of the tonal, or with mundane eyes, he does not perceive the spirit. When the harmony of the interaction of the tonal and the nagual is developed in a person, then, thanks to the integrity of his developed soul, anyone is able to look at the world through the eyes of the spirit and perceive what is happening with the true consciousness, freeing himself from the power and tyranny of everything mundane. It is the spirit that fills a person with magical knowledge and returns the shine of one's eyes. But why does the tonal make people's eyes dull? And why do people see the world so equally through the dull gaze of the mundane consciousness? Realizing the opposition of the true and mundane consciousnesses in any living being, sorcerers teach that there is a law in the universe. If a person's consciousness is not in touch with the spirit, then it is in the power of predators who exploit the person until one is completely withered and exhausted. Predators are the principles, cliches, ossified stereotypes and attitudes of the mundane consciousness that act aggressively and predatorily on a person's perception and deprive him of the shine of his eyes. This is a tyrannical and established vision of things that strengthens the mundane consciousness in a person. Thus, instead of directing his life-giving currents and forces to build the subtlest connection with the spirit and to be a conductor of eternity in the midst of the mundane, a person strengthens the mundane in his consciousness, which ignores the eternal. Deprived of the knowledge of the eternal, the mundane inclines anyone to the spiritless. Magicians say that in this case predators devour the consciousness of a person, making it a source of energy which serves as food for predators. Thus, in the power of the mundane and under the oppression of predators, any individual withers and weakens. That is why the eyes of such a person lose their shine and light and become dull. Predators dull everyone's eyes and deprive them of their individual vision of the world, making this vision mediocre, superficial, and the same for everyone who has been possessed by predators. Thus, a person stops living by his own goals and begins to serve the goals implanted in him by predators, thereby acquiring the mundane consciousness or mind of a predator. The goals of predators are the same for everyone. There is not enough of the same things for everyone. Therefore, participating in battles with other predators for a place in the sun and for things advertised by predators, a person becomes exhausted, becomes attached to the image of himself that predators dictated to him, stops seeing the world with the shining eyes of the spirit, and loses his individuality. Individuality is given to a person by the spirit. When a person is in the spirit, he is an individual. Predators made people the same and forced them to go to the same place, wanting the same thing. Having lost his individuality, a person forgot about his spirit. This is the great tragedy that the predators have played out on humanity with dull eyes. But how exactly does the predator's mind subjugate a person? The ancient knowledge, which Carlos Castaneda wrote about, teaches that one of the most dangerous maneuvers performed by the predator's mind on a person is the feeling of self-pity, which disguises itself as a feeling of self-importance. Constantly feeling sorry for oneself, a person laments that the world is unfair to him. Denying the law of equality and equivalence, which is one of the main ones in the universe, a person seems to feel that all the troubles of the world have fallen on him and feels an imaginary negative attitude towards himself from the world. Thus, anyone becomes fixated on the image of oneself and ultimately perceives this image as isolated and separated from all of humanity and the world, being in a cocoon of self-pity. The world of a person paralyzed by self-pity narrows to an atom, in which self-pity is his tyrant and master, and which deprives a person of the shine of one's eyes. A person who is unable to give happiness to himself or to others, crushed by self-pity, looks at the world with a pitiful and dull gaze. It is interesting that in Slavic languages, the words pity and contraction are related. When a person feels sorry for himself, he contracts and stops perceiving the world in all its volume and diversity. Striving to reveal himself in the space of the universe and perceiving the diversity of nature, a person comes to the true consciousness of the spirit, gaining the shine of the eyes. Self-pity anchors a person in the world of predators and makes the person himself a predator and a tyrant. The predator is busy with survival and not with life itself in its magnificence. The predator lives to tyrannize and tyrannizes in order to live. The frightened and tired eyes of the predator are not able to peer into eternity and see the invisible greatness of the human spirit. The spirit is seen only by the shining and full of power eyes of a person who has gotten rid of the feeling of pity for his own person. To get rid of self-pity, it is necessary to develop ruthlessness. ruthlessness does not mean cruelty, but it means refusing to live by the principles of a predator in order to gain clarity and develop sobriety of perception. Ruthlessness is getting rid of self-pity. Self-pity fences a person off from learning and knowledge. Through learning and knowledge, a person develops a Nagual and acquires the qualities of the spirit in the form of one's individuality. The spirit grants knowledge of the eternal, which sorcerers call silent knowledge. Silent knowledge is inaccessible to predators, but is available to every person in true consciousness, making the eyes shining and clear. Silent knowledge allows a person to soar above everyday life and see life from the heights of the stars and planets, from the scale of the universe. Mystical teachings say that at this moment, a person's wings of the spirit unfurl. On the wings of the spirit, everyone is able to soar and fly upward and forward from eternity to eternity through the darkness of the mundane, gazing with shining eyes into infinity. Magicians say that silent knowledge, through ruthlessness, reveals to man his unity with the universe and with nature. Through a deep sense of unity, man learns to feel the planet and the spiritual connection with it. Like man himself, our planet is a living organism and a conscious spiritual being who has a spiritual heart. Thanks to the connection of one's spiritual heart with the spiritual heart of the planet, everyone realizes his unity with all of nature and all of humanity. Feeling unity with all of humanity, man learns to think on a scale that is much larger than his own personality. Thus, the feeling of pity naturally fades and ceases to tyrannize the living, sincere heart. Through a spiritual connection with the planet, the warmth of the shine of one's eyes returns to man, thanks to one's open and sincere heart. Most likely, you do not know how to develop ruthlessness, as well as how to return the shine of your eyes and a sober, clear view of the world. To help you in this difficult task, we will share with you a magical practice for developing ruthlessness. Having developed ruthlessness, you will get rid of self-pity and the tyranny of the predator's mind. To do this, you need to begin to fill yourself with the knowledge of the eternal. Evil and predators die in eternity. In eternity lives the human spirit inaccessible to any evil and troubles of the world. Learn to feel that the earth is alive and tune into its spiritual heart. Just as you took your first steps when you were born in the physical world, relying on the earth, so you need to take your first steps on the path to awakening and spirit with the support of the spiritual heart of the earth. You need to learn to feel the unity of your spiritual heart with the spiritual heart of the earth, which magicians call Ra. The feeling of deep unity in spirit with the earth will free you from focusing on yourself as the center of the world, and will also allow you to distance yourself from the image of yourself dictated by predators and move away from self-pity. You will develop ruthlessness in yourself, get rid of the tyranny of the predator's mind and the usual dull look, restoring your energy and the shine of your eyes. Our channel has a separate video about the practice of connecting with the spiritual heart of the earth, Ra. We will leave a link to the practice in the description of the video and strongly recommend that you study and apply this practice. Learn to spread the wings of spirit and rise above the feeling of self-pity. Connection with the spiritual heart of the earth will inspire you and allow you to feel that you have the wings of the spirit. Flying on the wings of the spirit will give you a feeling of greatness and fulfillment and will lift you far above the feeling of self-pity, which tends to manifest itself in all situations of ordinary life. Learning to spread the wings of the spirit, you will stop looking at the world as a consumer and will be able to see it magically. This practice will teach you to choose what is needed, develop discrimination and save energy, giving preference only to what is necessary, useful and beautiful for you. Thus, you will be filled with spiritual light, spark by spark, which gives you ruthlessness, and your eyes will be filled with shine. A detailed description of the practice of unfolding the wings of the spirit, which magicians call the wings of the Arhat, is freely available at the link posted in the description of the video. Learn to reject the predator's mind. To get rid of the tyranny of the predator mind or mundane consciousness, you need to learn to reject. The energy of rejection is the energy of disagreement with the current state of affairs and refusal of the choice that the predator mind gives you. Remember, in any situation there is a choice that the predator makes in you, and there is a choice that your spirit makes. Rejection means refusing the predator, the self-pity it imposes on you, and also it means the development of ruthlessness. By rejecting the predator mind, rejecting its bright but poisonous gifts, you will naturally come into contact with the spirit and fill your eyes with force and eternity. In order to develop rejection, it is necessary to realize that a person becomes what he associates himself with. It is difficult to answer the question, "Who am I?" It is much easier to answer yourself what you are not. To understand what we are talking about, let us consider the following example together. When you see cruelty or greed in any of their manifestations, that is, states imposed on you by predators, tell yourself, "These qualities do not correspond to me. This is not me." Refuse to associate and identify yourself with these qualities of the world of predators on a deep sensory level. These are manifestations of the predator's mind, and therefore do not agree and do not accept these manipulations over you in any form. This will be the practice of rejection. Thus, removing the unnecessary and rejecting what you are not and what the predator offers you, you will learn to make the right choice with your spirit. The choice of the spirit will lead you to your destiny and return the shine of your eyes to you. Learn humility. Humility is the ability to see the meaning in everything and trust this meaning. It is the ability to perceive the one law by which the universes live in the things of the world in which people live. Humility does not mean submissively and meekly agreeing with circumstances. This is called servility and is a consequence of self-pity and a vision of the world imposed by a predator. Humility is openness and trust in one's own spirit. By developing humility, a person discovers the depth of perception in himself, feeling himself as part of a common plan. Trust in the spirit and its power bestows this power on you, endowing you with ruthlessness. With the help of the power of the spirit, you will learn to escape the tyranny of mundane consciousness and open yourself to the true consciousness. How to do it? Learn to see the deep meaning in everything and understand that you are where the Spirit has prepared you for. To do this, be honest with yourself and do not give in to despondency. Philosophers say that if it suddenly seems to you that the whole world is rolling into the abyss, be sure that this is how the universe ascends to heaven. Therefore, learn to accept things not as they seem to you, but as they really are. If you cannot be with the people and where you want, develop the beautiful and noble with those who surround you and where you are. Develop deep thinking, come into contact with beauty and harmony in any manifestation thanks to your honest and sincere labor. Do it without pity and despondency, calmly, sincerely, and selflessly. Thus your eyes will light up with the light of your spirit. Never forget the commandment of the magicians. The heart is in the spirit and the hands are in labor. To work with faith in the heart in the highest good and to trust in one's own spirit is the embodiment of such a beautiful quality as humility. Humility will return to you the purity of perception and the shine of the eyes. Man is the center of greatness and power, personifying the immortality of one's higher nature. Thanks to the Spirit, man is able to see the world in its true light and perceive beauty, striving for the beautiful. The feeling of pity for one's own person humiliates the soul of man and insults one's spirit. Because of the consciousness of a predator and the feeling of pity for oneself, man becomes a constrained and too tight carrier for the consciousness of the spirit. Because of this, man's eyes grow dull and one loses one's magical gift. To get rid of pity, you need to develop ruthlessness through a spiritual connection with the earth, be able to spread the wings of the spirit be able to reject the mind of a predator, and be able to reconcile yourself to the choice of the Spirit. In this way, your eyes will fill with shine, become shining, and help you follow through the darkness of everyday life, the path of truth towards your destiny.